we've invited a number of other authors to come and do short takes on their work. And we have some who are on the list. If your name isn't on the list and you'd like to make a quick presentation, well, there'll be time for that after we visit the authors who are on the list. Arthur Cola has been writing for the last decade or so, and he has been very productive. Every year he seems to have another volume, and he is from Oak Park and was a retired educator, and I'm pleased to present Arthur Cola. Art? A 5-minute presentation.
Well, thanks, Dominic, and thanks, Diana, for organizing all of this. It's been my pleasure to be part of Literati for many different presentations. I'm Arthur Cola, but I feel guilty now after the presentation that she made at the very beginning of this. My real name is Coliani, and I shortened it for writing. My mother hated it. She said, "Why are you not proud Coliani?" And here we go into this guilt thing, you know, I'm trying to be too American. I said, "No, Mom, it's a vanity. Coliani doesn't fit on the cover of the book." Cola does. So that's why it's Cola, not because of any kind of Americanization of us. It's more out of vanity. And I began writing, like Dominic said, about a decade ago when I retired from teaching. I grew up in Chicago, West Side. My family's from the old Taylor Street neighborhood. We moved to Our Lady of Sorrows Basilica when I was very young. And then we moved to Oak Park, where I stayed and went to Oak Park High School. I lived in Oak Park until I got married. And even then, I still lived in the same building we lived in when I was a kid, because my family owned it. And they had an empty apartment. So my wife and I had our first couple of kids in Oak Park. And now we live 5 kids later. We live in Wisconsin with 7 grandchildren as well. First, I usually write fantasies and historical fiction. I don't write tales of Italian families or our cultural experience or something like that. I try to include Italian culture in the stories that I create out of a historical tidbit. One of them is Stolen Christmas. This is Our Lady of Pompeii Church in the old Italian neighborhood on Taylor Street, the Italian shrine. They worked closely with me in establishing this book, as did St. Ignatius High School in Chicago. It was supposed to become a movie, but the producer had a stroke and it died in pre-production. But I am very grateful to the Shrine of Our Lady of Pompeii. And it is a tale very relevant because, as you know, that neighborhood has been a dying neighborhood as far as the Italian culture is concerned for many years, from the time when I was a kid, when the University of Illinois took over most of the neighborhood and destroyed the Italian cultural experience there, to now, with the variety of and diversity that surrounds the neighborhood and so forth, and then the removal of Columbus from our heritage in Arrigo Park. And I've been part of JCCIA's effort to restore Columbus to his rightful place, not because that he, recognizing his imperfections as a human being, but seeing it from the eyes of the 15th century rather than trying to judge him from the 21st century. So I'm happy to announce from the latest communication that Columbus Day is still a recognized holiday in Cook County, thanks to our efforts. I'm a history teacher too, so it really irks me that these millennials are going around destroying our statues and our heritage. Columbus represents the Italian footprint in the New World. And in my mind, to remove Columbus is to deny the Italian experience in the American experience. It has nothing to do with what he did as a person and a leader. you have to remember, this guy was put in jail for 10 years too, because he wasn't strong enough in his leadership to suppress the other cultures they found. My historical fiction usually revolves around personages of some note. My biography of Il Divino Michelangelo is a story of his life. Everything in here is accurate and authentic. And there's a little twist because, you know, throughout his life, he faced the controversy of his sexuality. And this addresses all of that from our perspective. And it's told through his eyes on his deathbed with his friends surrounding him as he relives his life. One of our authors talked about COVID, and that's gave birth to my new series. My last author experience 2 years ago, pre-COVID, Mary Carter, who is a well-known mystery writer, suggested that I get into murder mysteries because it's the thing in literature today. Everybody wants to read a mystery story. So, okay, COVID hit. I had nothing to do anymore. We were all confined to our house. So I came up with the Cenza Murder Mysteries, all written during the COVID time. And it revolves around an Italian-American family from Oak Park, obviously, my experience. And it gives a little insight in this Italian-American family where this young man announces that he is going to become a priest. Well, in an Italian-American family in the 1960s, you are not the only son in the family and dare say you're going to become a priest, right? Because the son has to carry on the name. This is 1964, not 2021. And so it's a tale of how he bucks his family and is sent off to Latin school to learn the language of the church. And in that experience, he encounters monks, who one of whom is a villain, and encounters murder, for which he is accused of being the primary suspect. And it's a tale of how he gets that all solved and resolved. And it's kind of a fun way because he's going to become a priest, but he meets this girl in the gift shop of the Abbey, and they have a thing. And he's embarrassed by it, and there's a love-hate relationship that develops, and in each subsequent book, the subplot of each murder mystery is their developing relationship as he is trying to stay true to his vocation, and at the same time, he has eyes for Susan. So it's and Murder in the Vatican, I think you're going to find particularly interesting from an Italian historical perspective, because I found a tidbit of history in my research. And it revolves around the House of Savoy, which is a royal family of Italy, pre-1946, during the referendum. Well, in that referendum, the Royal House of Savoy was ousted as the leaders of Italy, but by a very narrow margin. And if you looked at the research, that narrow margin was because of 500,000 votes discounted and not allowed to be counted. So the royal family lost their place of leadership by a questionable referendum from a historical perspective, but they lost. And the murder surrounds that. And the last book, though it takes place in Ireland, you must always remember that in all my work, there's Italian culture and Italian history woven into the story. So the characters are Italian, but they're solving a murder in Ireland.
And murder in every title, that's great.